Welcome to the Lift Heavy Run Long podcast. My name is Wilson Horrell, and my co-hosts are Vaughn Rawls and Amanda Horrell. You can find us at www.liftheavyrunlong.com, on Twitter and Instagram at LiftRunLong. Also, feel free to email me directly at the address wilson@liftheavyrunlong.com. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave us a review on iTunes. The mission of LHRL is simply this: to inspire and be inspired. We hope that you will join us each week as we speak with some of the world's most interesting people. Enjoy the show and find your bliss. I can't wait to tell my son and my 10-year-old son and my 7-year-old daughter that I talked with the Guinness Book of World Record holder for the fastest marathon time dressed as a video game character.
I can't think of a better character to have dressed up as. Are we recording? Chad Kelly. Watch how I touch down.
Chad Kelly. Hey, we look backwards. Is that a mirror image? No, that's a mirror image.
You didn't.
Is there a way to reverse that to where it's the other way? I said that.
I'm going to be laughing about that throughout this podcast. Yo.
Can you hear me okay? I f*** something up every time we do this.
Wait a minute. Can you hear me? I got to give you a high five on that one, man. That's dope.
The Krispy Kreme challenge at NC State, where you run 2 miles from campus down to the Krispy Kreme, eat a dozen donuts, and run back.
Oh, I could do that one every day.
Sign me up. Let's go.
So I signed up for a marathon. Around mile 18, it felt like someone took 2 live electrical wires and wrapped them around both of my legs. I don't know if you'd call it the good fortune or the horrible fortune of getting into the Barkley Marathons. Again, if you finish, then you're actually guaranteed a shot. And actually, I'm squatting here in this classroom, and the lights just turned out.
We can still see you.
As long as I don't get kicked out, I guess I'm good. No one's going to go to Berkeley and finish just from sheer willpower. Man, my wife's a superstar. You know, she takes care of the three kids, a 2-year-old and infant twins. I do races like Barkley. Ironman triathlons aren't an issue for me, but man, I couldn't do what she does. I still hate swimming, man. You get in a pool and you stare at a black line for an hour trying not to suffocate.
You lost me at get in the pool for an hour.
All right. Well, we won't waste any more of your time, and we'll go ahead and get started with the Lift Heavy Run Long podcast, episode number 38. I'm Wilson Horrell, and I'm here with my partner and accountant and spiritual advisor, Dr. Vaughn Rawls.
Wow.
And we're here with Mr. John Kelly. And John, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. This has been difficult for me to hunt you down. I know that you're a busy guy, and Vaughn and I both have kids, so I apologize for scheduling and rescheduling, but here we are.
No worries. I'm actually here hanging out at the beautiful campus of Virginia Tech. Just gave a talk here, so that's why this is about 10 times more dressed up than I am on a normal day.
I was wondering if you dressed up just for us or you had something else going on.
No, normally I wear to work about what y'all have on there. I work at a startup. So,
what do you do at your startup?
A data scientist. I'm the director of analytics there. So we take, huge data sets and try to predict interesting information from it.
Man, we talk to some sharp individuals on this podcast. I kill weeds for a living. So that's not exactly what you're doing, but it's pretty close, I'm sure.
That's a good time though, man. That's one reason I have to get out and run so much. I got to get away from the computer screen.
Yeah, that's right. And the time on my feet doesn't hurt. I enjoy that. Now, where do you live? Do you live in that area?
I live up in Rockville, Maryland. It's a little bit outside of D.C. I'm a few hours from Blacksburg, so I'm actually down here this week I've got a race in Virginia that starts on Friday, so wanted to go ahead and make the connection here and make one trip instead of two.
I was going to ask you about that. You had told me at the end of last year that you had a race coming up this weekend, and I was curious as to what race that was.
So it's a TWAT 100. It's the Wild Oak Trail 100-mile run. So I think it's about 112. So they do it each year in February, and then they have one they do in October, I believe, as well.
100-miler. How long have you been into the endurance, the ultra marathon part of running?
Honestly, not too incredibly long. I mean, I started off kind of doing more backpacking, doing a lot of hiking through hikes and whatnot, and kind of found my way into the ultra running world. So I've been doing that for a few years now, and I've kind of steadily progressed in what I'm doing. Really enjoy it. I mean, it's a good way of kind of doing the same thing I was doing backpacking, but doing it a lot quicker, seeing more in the process.
Well, when I was reading up on you, it sounded like that you had a background in running growing up or in high school, and then it said that you took a decade off before you got back into it.
Yeah, so I ran track and cross country in high school. Then I went to college. I went to grad school. Didn't really do much running in that time. I think I ran one race between my freshman year of college and 2013, and that was the Krispy Kreme Challenge at NC State, where you run 2 miles from campus down to the Krispy Kreme, eat a dozen donuts, and run back.
Oh, I could do that every day.
I'm sign me up. Let's go.
Yeah, that was an interesting one of those. I did it once. I don't know if I'll do it again. But then I started to get back into hiking and decided I wanted to see what I could do in running while I could, still do it. So I signed up for a marathon and kind of didn't do any sort of sufficient training for that at all, and it was miserable. I mean, around mile 18, it felt like someone took 2 live electrical wires and wrapped them around both my legs, and I basically crawled that last 8 miles. But I finished, and it was miserable. But then, of course, I said, I should do that again. I think I can do better than that. So I did, and I progressed and got quite a bit faster, and then found myself saying, well, why don't I do it a bit farther, do it on trails, or why don't I throw in some biking or some swimming and see what I can do in that. So,
what was the next distance after your marathon?
Yeah, so I focused a bit for trying to qualify for Boston in the marathon distance. So I did marathons for about another year, and I qualified right at the point where I had to wait another year and a half before I could actually run the Boston Marathon from my qualifying race. So I kind of said, well, what should I do in that time? And that's when I stepped up to the ultra distance and added in triathlon as well. And I had, I don't know if you'd call it the good fortune or the horrible fortune of getting into the Barkley Marathons much easier than would typically be possible, because I had the hometown card. I grew up right across the street from where that race is held. There's a mountain along the course that's named after my family because they've been there for 200 years. I was able to get into that and did pretty well, and I said, this is fun. I should do more of it.
Well, when you say that you had the card, the hometown card to get in, still, how did you go about saying, hey, I'm a hometown guy, get me in? Who do you contact to do that?
Oh, so I mean,
I'm not asking you to give up your secrets or anything like that. I'm just, how does that come about?
I had to do the same research that everyone else did to kind of figure out how to do that. In my entrant application, I sent in the information of, my story, my family story, how I grew up, and I had on there a picture of me standing on top of one of the mountains on the course when I was like 3 years old. So that got through to them, and that's essentially what it came to. So, and I had, and it wasn't until after that I figured out how hard it is to get into that race. And man, like if I'd shown up and not run well, I'd have felt awful for being able to get in that way. I had legit credentials. I had, again, some solid running credentials, some solid hiking and backpacking credentials. And so, it wasn't only that, but I know that that was a huge factor. My performance that year and being able to do the fun run in about 33 hours, I feel like I was able to justify my spot with that performance. If I hadn't have done well, I would have felt pretty bad about taking that spot.
Yeah, I don't think you have anything to feel bad about. You proved you're worth your salt. If you're one of 16 people to ever finish 4 laps, is that correct?
So that was this past year. So the first year I finished three loops. I ran with Jamil Curry. He and I both made it through 3 loops, and I was to the point where I'd been trying to shove gels and bars down my throat the entire race. And after about 30 hours and nothing but processed sugar, your stomach says, nope, no more. And I couldn't get any more food down the hatch, and I stopped after 3. Jamil went on, and he fell asleep on loop 4. I think came back 23 hours later. So no one completed 4 loops that year.
And how long is each loop?
So he tells you it's 20 miles with about 13,000 feet of climbing. I think the general consensus is it's more around 25, 26. And to stay on the 5-loop pace, you got to do each one in 12 hours. It's rough. And the navigation and the sleep and the briars and everything else, that's kind of what gets you as well. This past year, I started my 5th loop, and I'm one of 16 to ever start a 5th loop. And Gary Robbins and I, who both started Loop 5 last year but didn't finish, we're currently the only 2 people who have started Loop 5 and not at some point in the future finished. So other people have failed on Loop 5, but they came back later and finished the race.
And so is there another Barkley in your future?
Yeah, definitely so. So, I haven't kind of specifically gone out there and announced that yet the way a lot of people have, but I don't think it's too hard to figure out as well that I'm doing it this year, so I don't really have a problem saying that, and that's definitely my goal. I mean, that's my goal to get back there and with Gary kind of keep that statistic alive where no one makes it to Loop 5 and then doesn't finish at some point.
Once you do the race, are you welcome to come back the next year and the next year and the next year whenever you like, or how does that work? Is there another process to go through?
There's not much other races or other things are really a great indicator of success at Barkley other than success at Barkley. So if you go to Barkley and you do well, that really helps out your credentials for applying for the next year. So you have to apply every year. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so you have to do really well to really have a great shot of getting in again. If you finish, then you're actually guaranteed a shot. And actually, I'm squatting here in this classroom, and the lights just turned out.
We can still see you.
Yeah. As long as I don't get kicked out, I guess I'm good.
So I guess what I was getting at, if you get into the race and you go and if you're just screwing around and you like make a loop or do really bad or don't even really try, the odds of you getting to go back again are lower.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that they're lower, but they're definitely not better.
Gotcha.
He tries to keep a good mix of veterans and virgins in the race because, if it was all first timers, then no one would know where to go or what to do. So there is that aspect of it, but he also tries to keep a good mix between kind of elite and non-elite runners as well because he doesn't want it to be an elite-only race.
Right.
There are fewer elite runners, so if you're elite, then there are fewer people competing for your spots. And this year, there's actually a lot of elite people that are going to be in the race. So it's going to be interesting.
And it is such a unique race, and you summed it up well when you said really the only benchmark for doing well at Barkley is doing well at Barkley. If I'm understanding that correctly, you're saying that running 3 and 4 hour marathons or being good at certain distances really doesn't have a whole lot to do with being a strong Barkley runner, because there's so much more to it than just being a fast runner.
So there are a ton of variables in play, and being fast is certainly one of those variables. No one's going to go to Barkley and finish just from sheer willpower. Like you have to have physical talent, you have to have some speed, but you also have to have a lot of other things, including the mental fortitude, not getting lost, have to have a little bit of luck on your side, and there are just so many possible things that can go wrong. The faster you are, the more that you can overcome some of those other things that go wrong. But, being fast alone definitely isn't going to get you a finish. And that's been shown time and time again.
So being a really strong runner with a really crappy sense of direction, you don't stand a chance.
Yeah, so you can follow some veterans on the first whoops, and that's definitely what most people try to do. That can get you pretty far, and then hopefully by the time you're by yourself, you've learned enough to be able to navigate. No, you couldn't go out there. If Jim Walmsley went out there and tried to run it by himself, he wouldn't make it. But if he could stick with some veterans and kind of learn the course, then yeah, he'd have a great shot.
How much has that changed your life, just your day-to-day life, running that race?
Oh, immensely. Just from what it's taught me and the different perspectives, and also the more practically speaking, the amount of time it takes to train for it and to try to do it well. And that's something that I've placed an immense focus on in the past couple of years is training better and being more efficient at it and trying not to disrupt my family life. Because, I got my wife and I now got 3 kids, including twins at home. And that's got to be the priority. And training works around that. But it's such an experience. And I love doing it. That first year I was scared. The second year I had some confidence, but I was still anxious. And man, I can't tell you, this year I'm just excited. I'm thrilled to get out there in the woods and do the race.
Is there anything that you changed in your training specifically for this race that you're doing differently now that you've run this race and you're going to go back? Is there anything that you're adding to your training or doing a little bit differently specifically for this race?
I wouldn't say there's much that's changed between last year and this year, other than I am, some things I've learned in training in general, like doing some more high intensity stuff. Last year, I basically just did all long runs, kind of same pace, did a lot of hill work. This year, I've added in some higher intensity stuff. I've added some strength stuff in. That's something that I feel like really hit me hard the past couple of years. A particular muscle group would wear out more quickly, or I'd get an injury that was maybe a factor of having a weak muscle group. And then the other thing I've added, I'm doing a bit more on the treadmill this year, but again, that's mainly just a factor so I can be at home and I can watch one of the kids while I'm training rather than being off in the woods running thousands of times up the same hill.
Yeah, we had a friend of ours on the podcast who had finished the Barkley Fall Classic, Sean Hillsden, and he made the point that he didn't think that Barkley, the real Barkley, was going to be in the cards for him because of the time that it would take to train and the difficulty in trying to maintain a family at the same time.
Yeah, so that's definitely tough, and I gotta say, man, my wife's a superstar. She takes care of the three kids, and a 2-year-old and infant twins while I'm off at work. And I told her this just last week. I do races like Barkley. I think they're fun. They don't scare me anymore at this point. Ironman triathlons aren't an issue for me, but man, I couldn't do what she does.
Yeah, I get that for sure.
So having her support and having this kind of system we've developed where we can do this effectively is definitely enormously important. And if we had started with 3 kids, like if I had started how I trained 2 years ago and done that with 3 kids, it flat wouldn't have worked. But kind of as our family has grown, I've gotten more efficient and more effective and less disruptive in how I train at the same time.
Well, tell me about that, about being an Ironman.
Yeah, so that was something else where I had that gap kind of between when I qualified for Boston and when I was actually going to run it. And I said, I enjoy riding my bike in the summer. Why don't I give this a shot? Because, in DC in the summer, there's not a lot of great trails near where I live. I mean, there's some, and running trails in the mountains is my first love. I'd love to be somewhere where I could just step out my door and do that. But I don't have that. I don't love running when it gets really hot, especially if it's on the roads. And what I do have where I live is hundreds of miles of beautiful rural countryside with great roads where I can ride my bike. So I started doing that, decided I'd learn how to swim, which was pretty awful. I still hate swimming, man. You get in a pool and you stare at a black line for an hour trying not to suffocate. And that's what swimming is.
That's an excellent description.
You lost me at get in the pool for an hour. There's no way I would last that long.
So I don't know how much y'all know about swimming paces, but when I first got in the pool that summer of my first Ironman, I was swimming 3 minutes per 100 meters. And so just for reference sake, like the top people in Ironman open water swims, they're doing in like around 120 per 100 meters. And this is for 2.5 miles. So I couldn't swim at even half the pace for 100 meters that they were swimming for 2.5 miles. And it's been a big learning curve in learning the form. And, running and biking, I know that if I do the same thing that I'm doing and I just do it harder and faster, I'm going to go faster. And swimming, that doesn't work because, the harder you push, the harder the water pushes back. Mm-hmm. And so I do that. My general approach in the race is don't lose during the swim, sit myself up on the bike, and then try to kill it on the run. That's what I did that first year. I did pretty well. I did it on a 10-year-old Craigslist piece of junk bike. And this past year, I said, well, I should try to get a decent bike and qualify for Kona and actually do some real swim and bike training. That's what I did, and I ended up second at Ironman Maryland and got the Kona spot. And that was
wow! Holy shit! You got second in an Ironman?
Yeah, so there was no pro division in that race. I should add that. So most races, there's a pro division, and then there's the amateur division. And so this race didn't have any of the pros there. So, but it was great and awful at the same time because we had kind of a time trial start. And when I finished, I was sprinting across the line and I thought I was in first place, and I finished in first place. And then 20 minutes later, this guy that had started farther back in the pack came in and he finished with a faster time than me. So I thought for 20 minutes that I won, and all of a sudden I got second.
What was, just to give people some perspective, what was your time in that race?
So that particular race, they ended up canceling the swim because of weather. So that took a big chunk out of it. And my time was a 7:04. So my marathon at the end of that was a 2:53.
Wow.
So if I kind of extrapolated out to what I would have swam, and added in the other factors, it would have probably been around an 8:30 or an 8:40. It was a good race. It's a fast course. It can get windy, but it's pretty flat.
That's a pretty impressive marathon time. What is your marathon PR?
So that's 2:49. I haven't run a marathon that I like actually trained for and focused on since that Boston qualifier, which was 2.5 years ago. When I actually ran Boston last year, it was 2 weeks after Barkley, and I knew I wasn't going to PR or anything, so I dressed up like Link from Legend of Zelda.
No,
I wouldn't tell him who the character was.
I told him not to tell me because I wanted to know, I wanted to hear it live. And that just is amazing.
I can't wait to tell my son and my 10-year-old son and my 7-year-old daughter that I talked with the Guinness Book of World Record holder for the fastest marathon time dressed as a video game character. That's accurate, right?
I can't think of a better character to have dressed up as.
That is totally awesome.
And man, verifying that record, it was such a pain, man. It was so much harder than what I imagined verifying an actual world record to be. I mean, I had to get witness signatures and send them my GPS data. I had to take a selfie every mile. I had to carry my cell phone with me and take a selfie every mile of me dressed in my costume, actually running the route of the marathon.
As if you're going to jump out of costume for a few miles and then jump back in to take it home?
Yeah, I guess so. So, they take it seriously.
So you did some research before you decided to do this on that world record then?
Yeah, so I thought that was one that was fun that I could beat. Another one I was looking at was like fastest dressed as a superhero, and I'm not sure who has it now. When I was looking, I think Mike Wardian had it, he ran like a 2:36 dressed as, I think, Spider-Man, which, I said, nope, not going to try that one. And I've actually, I've talked to Mike. It's pretty well known that he's in Berkeley this year, and he lives real close to me. So he's set all kinds of crazy marathon records in the past year. Hopefully he doesn't go for the video game character one.
We're in the Memphis, Tennessee area, and the St. Jude Marathon is a big race, a big charity race around here. And I was in the restroom with some guys dressed like Elvis, which, of course, Graceland's huge here, and Elvis is huge everywhere. And they were discussing the world record time being set by someone dressed as Elvis in Las Vegas. And I thought,
that was Mike.
Was it really?
Yeah, he did that just this past year.
Where did he do that in Las Vegas?
Yep, he won the marathon dressed as Elvis and set the record all at the same time.
The world gets smaller and smaller all the time. I thought, who are these people? Like, how do you get in touch with these people? And here I am on the opposite end of a computer screen with one of these people. It's great.
What's impressive to me is, like, I run a 3:45 marathon, and I'm watched the guy dressed as Chewbacca pass me, and I'm like, man, that dude just ran a 3:30 marathon dressed as Chewbacca. But there's actually a group of people out there that are running like some serious sub 3-hour marathons in all kinds of costumes.
The
amazing.
Chewbacca is legendary. I mean, I think that probably it's an honor and a privilege to be passed by Chewbacca. This guy runs it in a full-fledged, fur Chewbacca suit at like 6'4", and I run like a 6-hour marathon. So I'm not even.
He needs to make the noise every time he passes.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna have to do some research on these world records now, because this is very interesting.
Yeah, there's Guinness actually sets up at the London Marathon every year and kind of has a whole slew of people that set those records. So you can kind of look at that. They normally put out an article on here's all the Guinness World Records that were set at the London Marathon.
That's so cool.
So is this what your life looks like all the time? I mean, your wife has to put up with, you get an idea and you say, I think I'd like to ride a bike. I mean, a lot of people like to ride bikes, but that doesn't mean they run out and they go finish second place in an Ironman. Then you say, I'd like to swim. Sure, a lot of people enjoy swimming. I have a swimming pool, but I'm not going to run out to Hawaii and be in an Ironman out there. So everything that you do you just hit it full speed like that?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much, I either do something or I don't do it. There's not really any middle ground for me. And that's why really, especially with my limited time, I have to prevent myself from doing a lot of things. A lot of stuff I used to do for fun, like I avoid, because if I start it, I can't stop until I finish. Like I used to love playing Zelda, of course, while I dressed up like that. And, I'm not going to get the new one, because if I know if I get it, I'm going to have to start it. I'm going to have to get every single item, completely beat the game. And so it's kind of all or nothing.
I was going to ask you if things like drugs or alcohol had been in your past, or anything that you had problems with in that area?
No, so that's a pretty common thread on ultra runners. A lot of people who have had that in the past. That hasn't been an issue for me, fortunately. So it's been more just a physical outlet for me, something again to escape staring at a computer and to get out in the woods and explore and see what I can do.
Well, it sounds like that you've done some incredible things and won some incredible races and performed at a high level, but it also sounds like that you really enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I first started out, I wanted to just see what I could do, like see what my body was capable of. But then I got into it, and I really enjoyed doing it. Again, except for swimming, I still hate swimming. But I see myself not doing it as intently, intensely. Once I, kind of feel like I've hit my plateau or I start to decline a bit on age, I'll probably back off on the training quite a bit. But I still enjoy doing these things very, very much for fun and have a great community around to do it as well. The ultra running community is unbelievable. Great people. Everyone I meet is just someone I'd want to hang out with. And this year in triathlon, I joined Team Everyman Jack. That I'll be racing with them primarily because they're a great group of guys, and I'm looking forward to having that kind of sense of community and sense of team that really I haven't had since high school cross country.
I saw that Team Everyman Jack. Is there a story behind that?
Just as far as the name?
Yeah.
Or, so it's the company, the lead sponsor, and the guy that founded the team is the CEO of Everyman Jack. It's a company started in San Francisco, and they sell men's care products. You can find them at Target and a number of other stores.
Oh, so
really
I should probably be familiar with that.
Yeah, pretty affordable too.
I'm a very ill-informed person.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I didn't know about them until I looked into the team. So their kind of marketing with the team is being pretty effective in that.
Are you familiar with Pacers Running?
I'm not.
There in Washington, D.C., a gentleman that we spoke with, Chris Farley, has Pace the Nation podcast. He owns 12 running stores in the Washington, D.C. area. And I was curious if y'all ever cross paths. He's a hell of a guy. His people are really fun, lighthearted people that we had all three of them. Their entire crew from their podcast was on our podcast, and we just had a really good time talking to him. And if you ever come across any of his stores, go in there and give him a holler.
Yeah, definitely will. And I've connected with a good number of people and would like to kind of be involved in the community more. It has been an unfortunate part of my own schedule. Like a huge part of my training is just I run to and from work, so I never get to do like group runs or anything of that nature. I just I do it as my commute, or I do it super early in the morning on the treadmill while my kid's waking up.
Well, in our community, I don't know how familiar you are with Lift Heavy, Run Long, but the community and the people and the support and the encouragement is really why I do it and kind of what I'm into, because I'm not an elite runner. I'm not overly good at the running or the lifting, but it's very important to me that I have people around in order to hold me accountable, and because I want to have fun doing this. And that's why I was asking you about the way that you carry yourself. You seem like you enjoy it, and I know a lot of people who are very fit and very athletic and also seem to be very stressed out and don't really know how to find the fun in all of it.
Yeah, so I mean, there are definitely times for that, and again, I view running home as kind of my mental release. Like, it's my time that I don't have to think about anything, so it's in that aspect of it, it's kind of relaxing to me. But on the flip side of that, I will admit there's runs that I don't want to do, where I wake up and I'm tired or I'm sore or it's really cold outside. And the part of me that kind of gets out and does that is the part that wants to do really well in these races and wants to finish Barkley and wants to see what I'm capable of. So there is a fine line there between kind of pushing yourself to the point. I think everyone has a point at which if they do something enough, they stop enjoying it. And one of my coworkers is a former U.S. national team rower, and I've had this discussion with him quite a bit. That kind of to be the best at something, you almost have to push yourself past that point where you're enjoying it. It's definitely a balancing act for me. I love doing it. I love competing. I love seeing the results of everything I do, and most of the time I enjoy the training. But there are times where it's something that I just kind of get out and make myself do.
Sometimes you just have to put your head down and do the work.
Yep.
Well, so I have to ask you the question before we let you go. We talk a lot on here about finding your bliss, and we define bliss as what you would do with your life if time and money were not a factor.
Oh, man.
What would your day look like if you could wake up every morning and do whatever it is that John Kelly wanted to do?
Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, I might play that a bit. I might go run out and pick that up. But I'd spend time with my family. I'd get a nice run or bike ride in without the stress of worrying about the time that it was taking up. Because if anything's stressful for me on training, that's what it is finding the time to fit it in without impacting my family or without impacting my work. If money was not an issue, I'd move to a lake house in the mountains. I'd spend my time with my family and with running and exploring, and I would continue working. I value the work I do, and I wouldn't want to throw away that skill set, but I would work on things that I really feel like are useful, things that would really have a beneficial impact rather than kind of having to work on things that bring a check home.
It sounds like you're pretty close to your bliss right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely like to live in a less congested, less urban area. Like I said, I'd like to move back down to the mountains somewhere. And I do enjoy very much being at a startup. It gives me a lot of the flexibility I need to train. Like if I need to get an afternoon long run in and then work that night, I can do that. Being able to work on absolutely whatever I wanted to rather than just the things that we're getting paid to work on, that would be the other big change for me. So, yeah, location and choice of what I work on would be the two main things, I guess, there.
Well, part of your problem is just being a good guy. If you didn't care so much about your family and didn't value them so much, you would have more time to just train. And, just being a bigger dickhead would solve all that. But I commend you for it. That's great. You have a beautiful family.
I think there's a country song about that. But I've told Jessi before. Jessi's my wife. I said, if it wasn't for y'all, I'd pack up and me and the dog would move to Montana. But that's I wouldn't favor that lifestyle over what I've got now. Yeah, it's definitely not a sacrifice. It's not something that I'm doing to be nice. I mean, it's love my family, love my kids and my wife, and just getting to come home every day and see my little 2-year-old run around the room saying, "Daddy's home." I mean, that's awesome, man.
You can't beat it. You absolutely cannot beat it. And sometimes you can get so caught up in the hustle and bustle that you forget to have gratitude for it. And it really is. It's a wonderful thing to be tied down with people that love you.
Yep, absolutely.
So what's next? Do you have any other Guinness Book of World Records planned?
No. So I just I've got this race on Friday here in Virginia, which it's going to be a really challenging race, and it kind of seems to me like a bit of a mini Barkley. It's 4 loops, 26 miles each, and but it's on trail, so navigation shouldn't be as much of a factor. And I'm very excited about the race itself, but then I'm really kind of using it as a dress rehearsal for Barkley as well. which is my primary goal. Like, I mean, finishing that race would mean the absolute world to me, just my personal connection to the area. So that's the primary goal, and then after that, I'll switch to focusing on triathlon for over the summer and getting ready for Kona in the fall.
Awesome. Well, we want to keep up with you and hope that you'll keep in touch with us and let us know how you do.
Do you have a website or a blog or anything we can follow?
I don't at the moment. I'm on Twitter, JW Kelly 1119. I've thought about setting that up. Some of the, like the team I'm on, and I've got a couple sponsors now, and they kind of want me to do that. So like I said, I'd like to be a bit more involved in the community, but right now I don't have that. And really, you guys are, honestly, you're the first podcast or first really anyone, any article or publication of any sort that's asked to talk to me since I've started. So
that surprises me very much.
Yeah, me too. And we're privileged to have had you.
Yeah, and it's just kind of a difference, and I'm kind of trying to build some of that stuff up, but really I do what I do for the enjoyment more so than for kind of exposure or for making a living. Like some people do it to make a living, obviously. And yeah, it's interesting for me because, I went into Barkley the first year completely unknown, and it was kind of, oh, that's cute. The local boy's doing it. The second year, people involved in the race knew who I was, but still, there was Gary and Jared doing it. Obviously, Jared, no one's had more success at Barkley. And over the past year, I thought, well, maybe I won't be the underdog, and kind of everything that's been out there has been, some of the elite guys that are running, and that's fine with me. I kind of enjoy being the underdog. I kind of enjoy having that chip on my shoulder of, oh, people don't think I can do it. It is kind of odd to me that I haven't really had much mention from my Barkley run last year, but again, that's just that's more motivation for me personally. I kind of like having that.
Well, we certainly like having you on the show, and to be able to say that we knew you win, because you're going to take off.
That's right.
You're going to take off. You're going to crush it this weekend. You're going to crush it at Barkley, and people are going to be all over you. If there's ever anything that we can plug for you or promote for you, or if you have a blog that comes out or any news that you want to get out there, I hope that you'll get in touch with me and let us help you any way that we can, and just stay in as close contact as possible.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate that. And like I said, I want to put some stuff out that people want to see. I don't particularly, I prefer to stay low key and don't want to do a lot of promotional stuff, but I do really enjoy seeing people kind of get motivation from, like after Barkley last year, and I had people I don't know message me on Facebook and say, your race is so inspiring. I had people say, they used the image of me leaving on that last loop to motivate themselves to get out for a run. And that's awesome for me. Like, that's something I never expected to see, when really all I wanted to do was see what I could do with running. And if I can put that stuff out there and kind of help other people see what they can do with running, then that'd be great. So I'll have to figure out what I want to do there. If I want to, do something small, yeah, I'll let you know.
Well, your performance is certainly impressive, but your level of humility is inspiring, and it's a great example. And so people will latch on to that, and whatever it is that you do, people are going to wish you the best. And Vaughn and I are certainly two of those people.
For sure.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Well, all right, John, you have a good evening, man. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Special thanks to Ted Horrell for providing the music that you hear at the beginning and the end of each episode. Be sure to head over to iTunes and search for Ted Horrell and the Monday Night Card for this music and more like it.
walked out of town last night was no natural disaster, and it wasn't white flight. I missed the whole thing, but you had best keep out of sight, and I feel it's got something to do with you.